Alright, so once again, I think I'm gonna put in the channel news along with the just general thoughts thing right next to each other, because I could separate these into two different groups, but maybe I will. I don't know. You'll be seeing it or you won't, but either way, I'm at a very different location, as you may be able to tell. I don't really want to show it, but you can probably hear it pretty well. Or maybe not. I'm at a lake. So the geese are just freaking out about something. Oh, and there's some ducks too. They do not look like they're having a good time surrounded by these massive other birds. Yeah, so I was gonna record actually over there. There's a really nice place, a bench I could set my stuff down at, but unfortunately, yeah, there's a lot of people walking by there. Like a lot. It seemed like it was getting quiet, but then, I don't know. Can't really see it right now, but alright. Suppose I could show you, but you can't really see it. But there's probably like 10 people and 2 dogs just walking on that little stretch, like half a block long. No, maybe a block long. Lake side. Whatever. I came over here. I'm not sure if you're supposed to be over here or not. There's like a dead river, and there's something which halfway looks like a path and halfway looks like you're not supposed to be here. It's certainly not like built as a path. It's got this, which confuses me. There's this little artificial river here, which I'll show you in a second. So maybe it's just covering this up. Either way, half of me thinks that, like, oh yeah, this is just like a weird path that people don't really know about. And then the other half is like, well, if it was a path, why would there be these rocks here? Like, they look kind of placed by humans. I don't know. Like, we've got this artificial thing here, so I can't imagine that there is a particular, like, reason to set them here. So maybe they were just here. Like, maybe this river was a lot bigger before they built this. Oh yeah, it is a dam. Yeah, maybe the river was a lot bigger. This other river here, maybe it wasn't dead at that point. I don't know. This lake itself seems like it was kind of man-made. Whatever. I can't imagine this tiny little thing. I mean, it's not tiny, but this little lake stream could lift up rocks like these, but I guess you never know. Either way, I don't know if I'm supposed to be here or not, but I don't think it's this kind of you're not supposed to be here where, like, I'll have to run away from cops or something. But, so, I think it's, if I am not supposed to be here, it's just like, it's not actually part of the normal stuff, but it's not fenced off. Either way, I guess I'll show you the pretty, river thing here. It's kind of man-made here, but over here it's not. So I think there was a river here anyways. They just didn't want it to go crazy, so they created a dam here. Because, well, there's a lot of infrastructure that seems to, like, be reliant on rivers not changing, and that's one thing that they do quite often. Yeah, I think there's a lot of border stuff going on where like the border is a river, and it's Texas and Mexico. There's a river that separates the two countries, and it's moved since the border was created, and I don't believe anyone knows what the new border is. I mean, effectively, it's the river, but... And then there's also stuff like, over here, this isn't the best example, but there are some houses which, like, half of their lawns are kind of sinking into the river, or into the lake. So if a river moved too much, like if this was a river before, it looked kind of man-made, but kind of not, so, oh, I get it. Maybe since the river is so high up there, maybe this was a lot bigger of a lake, and that's how the rocks got there. Either way, yeah, because I see some rocks down there, so maybe they got carried from there over to here. Yeah, but if a river like there or here were to and I think there's a river there that might just be an extension of the lake, but who knows. Yeah, so if rivers change like they do naturally, houses would kind of just sink in. So you can understand how they want to make them and restrict them like this. So it's about as powerful as it needs to be to not like fill up this lake, but weak enough where it's not really gonna change. At least it will slowly enough that it can be predicted and either stopped or helped, sort of thing. Like they can move whatever is in the way of the river. I don't know. It's really peaceful. Here's the dam. Yeah, I guess it's still a dam. It's not really stopping, but it is. They did like make a buildup here, so only like the top inch or two of water can ever come out. So I suppose that's sort of a dam, not really a powerful one. I guess if someone were to cut, or I suppose unlock this thing and the one over there, they would block it off more or less completely, but I cannot imagine a situation in which that's something I gotta do. The chain certainly looked rusted, even if the lock is still hard and brand new. Brand new, but, well, it's newish. I wonder what this is. I don't want to go too far, because I could easily fall in here with camera and all. I've seen these sorts of things before. These sorts of partly man-made rivers and lakes. Oh yeah, so there's the alpha male. At least I'm pretty sure. He's the one who got really close to hissing at me while I was on my bike coming up here. The bike, like you can't really bike through those rocks, but the bike itself, just being on it, even if it's harder to move around, it intimidates them a little more. So, oh yeah, there's apparently some of the ducks are making a quick getaway from the aggressive ones. There's two ducks there, and then there's the two on that log, which I guess they might not be that intimidated. I don't know if these two fight. I mean, it seems like they have the same food source. They probably would, but I guess not. I don't know. I guess both geese and ducks aren't exactly natural predators, so even if they do fight, it's probably very little, so they probably just tolerate each other. But, I mean, like, there's ducks going right through the goose area. Oh, there's the alpha male. He is looking at me. Or no, he's not, actually. I forgot. His eyes are on the sides of his head. So when he's pointed at you, he's actually looking parallel to you. Or not, perpendicular to you. So he's sideways, so now he's looking at me. Anyways, yeah, I guess I'll switch over to channel news. I'll put a break in here. Yeah, I think I can make these into 2 sections. All right, channel news, and I've actually got a plan. There's that. It's a rare thing for me. All right. Oh, I forgot. I didn't write this in order. I have it like listed like there's 3 things, and I have it listed 2, 1, 3. So time to screw up. All right. First thing, book talk. Oh yeah, the book talk is definitely gonna happen. So I wasn't sure what I would review. At one point I was thinking like, oh, I'm just going to review every book I read. That's not going to happen. Or at least not yet. I could probably rant about every book, but that's not a quality video, especially when I don't really know my thoughts about them. In fact, I probably wouldn't have made that same last video if I didn't have such odd feelings about L.E. Modesett Jr. Or Modesett or whatever. But I have another 2 books which I'm going to be comparing, which gave me a very interesting feeling. I don't want to say which books, but I'll say this. They're both unlikely but possible futures for, I don't really want to say the United States. They both take place in either America or Canada, but really like North America and the world basically. But focused sort of on the USA, Canada kind of area or culture group, given Americans and Canadians are, well, kind of similar. As someone who used to live in the northern regions. Canadians, I don't want to say they're indistinguishable, but they're basically like America plus slightly more polite, and they have to deal with a winter that's equivalent to Siberia. But then you go south of the border and you hit Mexico, who is all influenced by Spain instead of France and England like we were, and you just get a whole different culture. Although, I guess we are sort of, I don't know, it's not a problem, but it's just, our cultures come from different sources. America is sort of Western European, and Mexico is sort of exclusively Spain, and that's just because Spain kind of came in and just wiped out the indigenous like way more than we did. I say we, but my blood's as mixed as any other American. I don't know who we would be. The English, the French, the Spanish? Anyways, way off topic there. Okay, book talk, yeah. So it's two possible futures, and interestingly, it's two possible futures which both arise from sort of collectivist ideals, at least to a certain extent. Well, no, individualist collectivist ideals, I guess I could say, where you're still an individual, but it's not the individual concern, but the ends justifies the means style, like the better that everyone is the better that the individual person is, which is sort of how collectivists are, but it seems like collectivist cultures like China, and less these days Japan, seem to just kind of ignore the individual, and these don't. It's the individual concerns which drive these societies. I don't know. They both have a different take on what are modern things. I'll say this. Facebook, sort of. Of course, there's other social networks, but I'll use it as the example because a lot of people, when it first came out, were predicting, like, oh, we're going to be like book. I'm not going to say the name. You'll know it. They're saying, like, oh, yeah, we'll be like that. Oh, 1984. 1984 is not one of the books, but 1984 is, it's one of the books like 1984. One of those sort of like, this is where our society could be going style books. Unlike 1984, unfortunately, actually, it's not like cited as this is where our culture is going all the time, even though 1984 is a totalitarian regime that ignores its people, and that's probably not going to happen to America. I'm not saying we have a totally good end, but I think the worst kind of end we could have is one of the books I'm talking about. The other one is sort of a utopic view of this, but they both come from the perspective of it's sort of like the average Joe's society. Like, you don't have to be special to live in this society at all. In fact, the one I'm currently working on finishing, it's in fact your imperfections as well as your perfections which work things out. Anyways, talked too long about that. I might have given away too many details, or maybe not. Either way, I'll move on to the next thing. Oh wow, I've really crumpled this paper. Number 2. Oh yeah, philosophy. Philosophy is actually gonna happen. I have an idea for philosophy. I kind of want to work out my ideas a little more. I know I keep saying like, oh yeah, the philosophy thing, but I've actually got an idea now. I've had a couple of ideas. I have 2 ideas actually, but the other one I don't if I talked about it, all right. The first one I talked about infinite complexity and one of its effects. I'm forgetting it now. Whatever. I'll look back at it later. More or less, I talked about infinite complexity, which is one of the main pillars of my philosophy. My philosophy, that's kind of arrogant. I talk like I'm Nietzsche and I've spent 40 years making it. No, just my thoughts on things, which I guess you could call my crappy philosophy. Or arrogant, or ignorant. We'll say that. My ignorant philosophy. I'm not someone who goes and studies and looks into each philosopher individually, not to say that I ignore them. Plato is someone who's really fun to study. Actually, that's one of the things I'll be talking about, but in the next video, because I know what I want to talk about. I need to come up with at least a couple main points so that I can not just ramble. Either way, so my philosophy has 2 main pillars. Infinite complexity is one of them, and the other one is less easy. I don't really have a name for it. The only reason I have a name for infinite complexity is because, at least according to Wikipedia and Google, there isn't already something called infinite complexity, and that name fits perfectly for it. Or I guess there is something. I think it's like a mathematical term, but it's a really minor math. I don't know. Either way, there isn't really anything called infinite complexity, and since it fits so perfectly, and it's such a like nice, easy name, I'm going with it. It's sort of like, I think like Rand got really lucky. I don't want to be as arrogant as Rand, but she got really lucky because I guess there wasn't anything called objectivism, like objectiveness. Yes, but she got in there and she effectively called her philosophy the ism of facts, the factness, I guess, is what she more or less. Whatever you want to translate isms to, yeah, like rationalism. I mean, to be fair, that was a while ago. Rene Descartes, well, I guess he wasn't the first rationalist, but the rationalism. It's sort of like that, except she's not objective in her mythology, in her thinking. She's not objective in her thinking. She just got the great name, which is why I like infinite complexity. Plus, I talked about it on the internet, even though I'd been thinking about it for years. So, if nothing else, if something else comes out as infinite complexity, I can say, in the very least, you weren't like, this isn't your exclusive idea. Let's say John Doe comes out with his original idea of infinite complexity. I don't think I'm the first one to come up with it, but at least I can say, like, hey man, you're not the only one. There's at least me, which means there's probably 100,000 other people who have thought of this once or twice. Anyway, so that's sort of the plus of doing this. Plus, I guess, it's also the plus of being able to, still having, like, nobody watch these things. I can put them out there and just nobody cares, but they're still out there as proof of my thoughts. Yeah. So, oh wow, this is gonna be a long video. Yeah, so I'll be talking about that. I kind of want to talk about the second pillar of my philosophy. Can't yet, but I'll be talking about one of my main ideas, which sort of ties into the other pillar. All right. Yeah, the third thing. New series. There is a couple ideas in the works. There is something. I guess I don't mind talking about this one a little more in detail, just because it probably won't work out, honestly. But I kind of want to start something similar to D&D. I've never actually played D&D, although it seems fun. But I like the idea of sort of adventures that happen randomly. I don't really want to play D&D in the style where you, like, choose it. But I want to, like, I'll have a whole bunch of yes or no answers in it, and I'll flip a coin, kind of thing. And then on top of that, I want to... I'll build in additional stuff. I think to keep it separate from D&D, I'm going to make it more sci-fi than fantasy, like astronaut adventures or cowboys or something. That said, it's way not in the works. It's an idea that I'm messing around with right now. So if it does, it might happen, but honestly, if it happens in 5 years, I'll be happy. I'm just starting to roll the idea around in my head. I actually went and got some D&D dice. They were kind of cheap. Kind of not, too. I kind of expected them to be like 20 cents a piece. But then again, they weren't $1 each either, so whatever. So I'm figuring out the logistics of it. I don't know. Something I'm playing around with. I first, though, would have to figure out how to... Because, like I said, with these yes and no answers, the main idea of this would be that I would have to have something set up for either way. And then, so more or less, I've got to build a tree, just like here, this tree here. You look at this, it's crazy, it's got 1,000 branches. Starts down there, and then it branches off and gets crazy. I've got to build this entire tree, even though in reality, we're gonna end, the adventure will probably end right there. I've got to build this whole dang tree, though, with all its options, because I've got to build, I can't predict prematurely like, is it going to be a yes to, like, we'll say there's just an infinite number of doors. This is a really boring story, but there's just 2 doors. You enter the 2 doors and there's another 2 doors. Basically, I've got to come up with some choice every time, and maybe more than some, because I got a dice which is 4-sided, or it's 4-sided. It's got 4 options. Anyways, it's a pyramid, weirdly enough, but whatever. I've got it more or less with that 2 doors example. You enter door A, you see another door A and B. You enter door A again, there's another door A and B. So it's the same thing with this tree. I've got to build the adventure at least to a certain extent with every possible option. So I've got to build an AAAA, an AAAB, a AABA. Yeah, you get it. Like, the more, even like 4 choices in, you've got 16 options, and I've got to write a story for each of those. But I still want to make the choices there a lot. So I'm thinking the way it'll play out with that, if I do end up doing it, is that the main choices, although they'll be dramatic, I'm going to make the choices bigger but less obvious. Sort of like if you've ever played the game, I've barely played it, but I've seen people play it anyways, the Walking Dead series, the video games anyways, there's like a thing that comes up like, X character will remember you made that choice, which basically tells you, the thing I just did, it will affect the story. In my own experience playing those games, they didn't do it as well, it's just that the other characters didn't end up liking me at the end, although the end was the same. I don't know what I did wrong. But, the main thing is, I want to make a full different story. But I think a lot of the choices will really come down to logistics, though. Like you confront, I don't know, what's a space monster? An asteroid. Your ship confronts an asteroid. But you have limited missiles. Do you want to use one of the missiles to blow up the asteroid, or do you want to try and dodge it? Maybe I'll say, if you try and dodge it, it'll scrape the bottom and you'll create a whole bunch of problems there. But if you use it, you're going to run into enemies later which will be all the harder then. So I'll make a whole bunch of those types of things. But the story doesn't actually change. The only difference is you either have less rockets, or you have to like protect the bottom of your ship better with your additional rocket. I don't know. So I'm going to make choices like that. So whatever. That one's in the works, but not gonna happen for a while, probably. But it's an idea I like. Plus, I've got other ideas which are just ideas of ideas at this point. But that's the first one that's like, I've kind of figured out what I want to do, I just don't know how yet. Oh wow, 14 minutes, so this is about to become uneditable. Alright, so enjoy the dogs. Those 2 things are coming up, and the one in the works. Yeah, enjoy the dogs. Alright, so I suppose he's saying goodbye for us.